Merry Christmas, season's greetings, and welcome back to Archaeosoup Towers for the Christmas special 2017. Yes, folks, it's been a whole year. It's almost hard to believe, but in that year there have been yet more exciting archaeological revelations coming out of the Santa's compound excavations up in Lapland. You may recall back in 2013 I was first approached by a young, nervous but incredibly excited archaeologist called Marion. She had just been granted the opportunity of a lifetime. She had been hired to be the archaeologist to do investigations ahead of planned factory expansions in Santa's compound. Santa wanted to increase the capacity to make toys for all the girls and boys and he wanted, though, as the factory was expanding, to make sure that he wasn't going to be building on archaeologically significant remains. Hence, Marion got in touch. Initially, she wanted help with a desk-based assessment, and together we went through some of the things that she may well uncover. There had been, for example, some test excavations done in the 1950s, and for more on all this you can check out the video, indeed the whole playlist of videos that I'll put a link to at the end of this video and also in the description below. Now, over the years, Marion has fostered a really good working relationship with Santa, with the elves, and really everyone in the community. And this really pays dividends when it comes to, I suppose small little opportunities that reveal themselves here and there. For example, last year, Santa wanted the sleigh landing area, kind of like a runway, I guess, to be resurfaced. And so, as the resident archaeologist, Marion was brought in to conduct a watching brief. She simply observed the work being undertaken. When they ripped up the old surface, did some light landscaping, I suppose, to flatten out the area, and then put down a new surface, she observed this work and didn't halt it. It had to be done quite quickly in time for Christmas, but she was able to retrieve some fascinating samples, even from that small window of opportunity. In this instance, it was unstratified ash. This ash is the unreconstituted form of the letters as they arrive in Lapland. In other words, people who post their Christmas letters up the chimney, they burn up in the atmosphere, they fly over to Lapland, and then a machine was sort of sucking them out of the air and reforming them into letters, so complete with glitter and drawings and spelling mistakes and everything. It was a truly fascinating machine. If you want to know more about it, check out last year's Christmas special. But these sorts of opportunities have come about precisely because Marion has ingratiated herself to the entire community. 2017 for this project has primarily been about post-excavation analysis of the materials, the artifacts and the samples recovered during excavation in a laboratory setting, gleaning more information and data out of this evidence to paint a better picture of what was going on in the past. And sometimes this involves sending material off to other specialists, for example, pottery specialists, this kind of thing. But also, in particular this year, Marion wanted me to share with you the exciting evidence and the exciting implications of some of the evidence that's come out of, in particular, microscopic analysis of the materials recovered during these excavations. So today we're going to take a look at 4 key pieces of evidence and what microscopic analysis has yielded, starting with the famous candy cane melt layer, as predicted in the desk-based assessment back in 2013, but as was recovered in 2014. So we suggested that there may be a candy cane melt layer during our desk-based assessment back in 2013, and the excavations brought it to the surface. It's really interesting to see how the factory fire affected the candy cane stores. Over the course of this project, Marion and her team have literally written the book on candy cane sampling and analysis protocol. It is a curious side effect of the Santa excavations, but ultimately it's all about getting the candy canes under the microscope. This means crushing them down and then putting them into solution with sterile water in order to get those molecules suspended and viewable for analysis. Now, before any of you comment These are not meticulous laboratory conditions. I'm simply replicating the process for you here in my office. But the labs up on site in Lapland have been meticulous in their approach, and I'm quite pleased to see some new methodology coming out of these excavations, because surely if you're going to dig Santa's compound, you're going to find new materials that require new analyses and new methodology, which thankfully Marion and her team are more than capable of pioneering. Anyway, samples were produced and put under the microscope, and this is what was found. At 40 times magnification, you can see the molecules of the candy cane suspended in solution. For the most part, the sugar has melted, but there are some noticeable elements. For example, the red stained sugar here is quite possibly remnants of cherry syrup, as identified in the desktop assessment a couple of years ago. The sample smelled strongly of peppermint, and there was a peppermint oil residue throughout. There were also mysterious elements that seemingly phased in and out of view. Santa wouldn't comment on these, save to say that his candy canes contained magic. So, to a certain extent, nothing too surprising there. Candy canes is candy canes, I guess. There is that certain strange element which Santa will only explain as being magic, but I suppose we need to allow him certain mysteries here and there, and the candy canes from Santa's compound are excellent, so maybe it's the secret ingredient, and who can blame him for wanting to keep that secret. Next we move on to snow. Yes, snow. As amazing as it seems, microscopic analysis of this superabundant substance, particularly when it comes to Santa's compound, has actually revealed a fascinating story. For this analysis, we're employing a scanning electron microscope, similar to this one seen at Durham University. These machines produce images of extraordinary magnification. In this instance, we're looking at a snowflake. At 93 times magnification, note the scale of 1 millimeter. Next, we zoom in to 329 times magnification, and bit by bit, an interesting artifact emerged on the snowflake. 908 times magnification, 1860 times magnification, and finally at 3900 times magnification, the artifact is revealed. It's a stamp, or more accurately, it's the negative from a mould. If we change the contrast on the image, it becomes clearer as Elvish script. In fact, this is a date and 2 initials. The date is 23/12/75, the 23rd of December, 1975, and the initials are T and B. This is manufactured moulded snow, produced on the 23rd of December, 1975, and the head of the workshop shift on that day was an elf called Torf Bignose. This snowflake, and many more like it recovered from the site, show that they were producing large volumes of snow in the factory and pumping it into the air. Isn't that interesting? That in and around Santa's compound, they felt the need to supplement the snow that's there. Now, Santa would not be drawn on the reasons for this. Some people are talking about global warming. Maybe there's just less snow, and other people are talking about a certain desired aesthetic, and perhaps Santa wanting to sort of design the landscape to be more Christmassy for his own reasons. But either way, I love that out of this analysis has come the elf, the name Torf Bignose. What a name. I mean, elves and their names, they're superb. Next under the microscope is that unstratified ash. It's ash. What could it possibly tell us? Well, more than you might think. Once again, we're using an electron microscope to analyse the ash recovered from last year's excavations. At 93 times magnification, the ash is still recognisable as ash. But as Marion suspected, this is special ash. Note the words phasing in and out of existence, floating around the ash, almost like a form of radiation. These are the words within the letter, waiting to be reconstituted. They went up the chimney, and now they exist in a phased form of matter. Letters as a form of radiation. Fascinating. That this small sample of ash contains so many hopes, dreams, names, locations, potential, I suppose. But thankfully, don't worry, this particular form of radiation is not dangerous to human beings, or elves for that matter. Fascinating. Now, potentially, I've saved the best and most surprising till last, and that is evidence recovered from an ice core. This is only a section of a relatively sterile ice core, hence I'm allowed to hold it on camera, but one core in particular recovered during this project has contained evidence that really surprised me and I think has big implications. As you might expect, Marion and her team have been collecting ice cores as they proceeded with their investigation. These tubes of densely packed ice from below the ground can tell you an awful lot about what happened in the past. Looking at the layers built up in the ice, examining gases trapped in the ice can tell us about climatic change over time, but occasionally something else is trapped as well. This is a speck of pollen recovered from the ice. It was analysed by a specialist, a palynologist, and they determined that it came from a passion flower. This is a tropical plant, and along with other environmental evidence that's currently being processed, it strongly hints that in the past, in the distant past, Santa's compound had a very different climate, and plants such as the passion flower encourage wildlife, such as the hummingbird. I love this evidence, because to look at the landscape today, you'd never guess. It truly highlights how we can take nothing for granted when it comes to the past. Now, as potentially exciting and remarkable as this evidence is, this is very much provisional. This analysis has only just come out of the lab, and after all, material comes to Santa's compound from across the world. This stray pollen may have been attached to one of those letters waiting to be reconstituted. More work will have to be done on I suppose the geological and the climatic history of this part of the world. But the potential that a prehistoric jungle has been revealed through analysis of an ice core at Santa's compound is at the very least an exciting prospect. As I say, we don't want to take this evidence too far just yet, but I'm excited. So there you go, some of the most exciting pieces of evidence and the implications of that evidence coming out of the microscopic analysis of materials uncovered during the Santa's compound excavations, which are ongoing in Lapland at the moment. Hot off the press, as it were, or well, I suppose very cold off the press, actually. But nonetheless, this evidence is certainly changing how I view Santa's compound, and in that sense, I guess, the history of Santa, and how exciting and important it must be to be literally breaking ground in this area of archaeology. So once again, a huge thank you to Marion for her time and for allowing us to share these insights into such exciting archaeology. I guess all that remains to be said is a very, very warm and Merry Christmas from everyone here at Archaeosoup Towers. Whatever you get up to, whatever you don't get up to, enjoy yourselves, and here's to a wonderful new year as well. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.